Hi, VOD watchers. This isn't normally something that I do, but one of my close friends, not so erudite, went ahead and participated in a Ghibli video, so I have to go ahead and show some love and support, and also check it out, see how they did. I'm gonna be giving my opinion on some of these things. No, this is, this is separate from my professional psychology self. This is my personal opinion. Some of this is political based, but I will be using, of course, my psychology background to talk about some of the empathy and some arguments or whatnot that might be made. With that being said, let's go ahead and bring it up. I'll bring it up in short form here. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Am I carrying?
Oh God, it's Piers Morgan. We're already starting off to a bad start. Here's the thing about Piers Morgan, in case y'all don't know. He's an individual when stuff doesn't like to go his way, he will legitimately just try and run circles, right, of like nonsensical gibberish or try to go ahead and trigger the individual across from him in order for the whole argument to be derailed and more focused on the attacks that are it's a very common psychological tactic, right, to go ahead and put pressure on elements that aren't necessarily like needed to be there, right? It's a manipulation tactic that's used to fester away from the main point that is there. And you'll see this often in individuals that aren't comfortable about talking about a certain topic, where they'll rile up the other individual instead of hearing them all the way through, you know? Sorry. All right, let's hear this.
Wokies are around me. Stop
express their emotions in a positive way is literally participation trophies not being there.
See that? You see that tactic right there? Parker! 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 If you really want to go ahead and demand an opportunity to speak, let a person speak. There is going to be natural moments of dullness. Even if they take up 2 minutes of them just yapping away, at the end of the day, who's going to seem more sane at like of their point, right, as to what's happening out there, right? It's the individual that's holding their ground, but jumping immediately into putting the other person on a defensive position to try and make them seem like they're crazy is such a wild, or like that they're a little bit off, off center is not the right approach, right? And it's such a weird thing to go out and see someone do that, right?
Boy, look, have you been on your own show? You interrupted me the whole time, and now you're just getting the same thing.
So me telling you that you are spreading misinformation, that is not fascism. That is just me telling you you're wrong.
But you're not telling me I'm wrong, because I'm right. Hi, I'm Piers Morgan, and I'm the host of Piers Morgan Uncensored on YouTube. I'm also the author of a new book, Woke is Dead, and today I'm surrounded...
I have a whole read on this man. I haven't even started this video. I have a whole read on this man just by the way he's sitting. Psychologically speaking, let's talk a little bit about his positioning of his feet, right? It's such an interesting perspective. First off, Jubilee, to surround someone like that, you're already putting someone in a fight or flight situation. Let's talk a little bit about what you're doing in here. And I get it, right? Theatrics, cinematography, whatnot. It's probably best that you do it this way because, you're surrounded by 20 leftists or rightists or whatnot, right? But what are you doing to the person in the middle? Even though they're in there and even though they might be a subject matter expert, you are putting that person in a fight or flight situation because they're surrounded, right? This happens naturally to everyone. And of course, you leave one space there for whatever that may be. But it's just one of those quick things that you really, really want to go ahead and talk about because ultimately it's not going to lead towards proactive conversations, right? Or proactive discussions. It's just going to lead to name calling and legitimately just tomfoolery if we're going to be matter of fact about it, right? But also, woke is dead, like, God. Okay, look at the way that he's sitting. Look at the way that he's sitting. It is such an interesting, like, I don't know. I don't know if it's a camera angle trick or if it's because he's leaning forward. But to me, that seems more along the lines of like not really secure enough to like stand your ground in there, right? Or appropriately sitting in some capacity. I love to cross my legs. That doesn't mean I'm uncomfortable. In fact, that means I'm extremely comfortable, right? But whenever you look at someone's positioning, this tells you everything that you need to know, right? Especially when it comes to debate tactics or when it comes to debate settings. Isn't the greatest format for proactive discussions. Exactly.
by 20 apparently still alive woke liberals.
Oh God. Okay, here we go.
My first surrounded claim is that masculinity has never been toxic.
Hold on. It depends. What aspect of masculinity are we talking about, right? Because I'll be very upfront, right? Masculinity, it can be toxic. Masculine, in general, masculinity can be toxic. In fact, there are cultures out there that celebrate toxic masculinity as a way of cultural norm, right? Or cultural normidity. When we're talking about instances like this, we have to take a sociological view and understand that there's different forms of what is masculine or what is masculine presenting individuals out there, right? When we're talking, like, for example, I'll use Mexican culture, right? Machismo is one of the most common phrases that you'll hear whenever it comes to masculinity, and especially toxic masculinity as you come further north, right? What does that mean? Well, it's situations where males or male actions are unfortunately prioritized or deemed of importance, more importance than any other gendered or non-gendered, individual. That includes, why isn't my kid drinking and having multiple partners or cheating on multiple partners and, coming home drunk and prioritizing the guys and, there's all these different things out there, right? Of course, I'm only speaking about the broader sense of things because, of course, there's also the gentleman aspects that are there as well, right? But the saying that masculinity has never, right, been toxic, the fact that they use never has already in of itself just canceled the idea altogether. Masculinity can be toxic. And in fact, it's one of the key aspects that in psychology we talk about, right? We talk about boundaries because it is such, and I hate to put it this way, boundary aversion and boundaries crossing is more commonplace in young adults and teenagers, young adults, and unfortunately regular adults, adult males specifically, or presenting males, than more females than we've seen, right? Or non-gendered individuals. Why is that? Well, because you're told from a young age to act like a man. You're told that it's your way or the highway. You're told that, you have to, what is it, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, keep on going forward, don't take no as an answer. There's all these things that previous generations, like the silent generation, which wasn't adverse to speaking up against any insecurities or any issues that have really been coming through, right? That because they stayed silent about all of this and they just told, okay, just be quiet and keep moving forward, that unfortunately started propelling a lot of these aspects of toxic masculinity. Don't cry, you're a boy. Very common aspect of things, right? Exactly, Thunder Biome. It's like define masculinity. And everyone has a different version as to what masculinity is. And that is based on the social cultural elements of things. Sorry, I get a little heated when it comes to this because a lot of individuals, whenever it comes to any conversation about, masculinity this or masculinity that, they'll instantly try and throw like the APA or psychologists down the fucking drain for whatever reason. And they'll try and be like, hey, you know what? Like therapy is worthless. Psychologists, have derailed the proper aspects of what mental health is. You don't need therapists. You don't need psychologists. Don't you know being a man means that you don't need help? You don't need to talk about your feelings. Guess what? Therapy and psychology has been some of the most ancient aspects of how we have healed. Before we are known as psychologists and therapists and mental health experts, a lot of the talking actually came from priests, from your local bartenders, right? And from bartenders in the past, and also sex workers. There were some of the first individuals to be considered therapists and that actually helped individuals start the process of healing, even unknowingly, even not knowing the proper therapeutic techniques. Why? Because talking helps. Talk therapy works, right? So whenever I look at this aspect that masculinity has never been toxic, prove to me that it's never been toxic. How can you define it? Are there good things about being masculine presenting or having an aspect of masculinity? Sure, we can make that argument, right? But the claim that masculinity has never been toxic in of itself, you've already got yourself in a negative, right? In an absolute. Whew. All right, sorry guys.
1 second.
Ah! There she is! She's the first one! Ah! That's not so erudite. I absolutely love her. Oh my god, she's a close friend of mine. She just booked it! She just booked it! Oh!
Piers.
So I guess where I want to kind of start is talking about masculinity. So I view this, do you think that this is like socially emergent, I imagine, to some degree?
Well, I think
My girl. I'm so proud of you. I am so proud of you. The fact that you first approached it with, is it socially divergent, right? I noticed how he stood up immediately too, right? Immediately, chat, you gotta drop some Doritos. You gotta drop some Doritos on that question. The way that she just approached this instantly.
I'm Piers.
So I guess where I want to kind of start is talking about masculinity. So I view this, do you think that this is like socially emergent, I imagine, to some degree?
Emergent,
Well,
yeah.
I think the truth about the whole toxic debate about masculinity is it's a completely new phenomenon. Before, about 30 years ago, nobody ever used that phrase.
No shit. People wouldn't say that phrase because there was a lot of DV and stuff, and you wouldn't want to go ahead and say that your partner was toxic or that a lot of males were being toxic, because guess what? Even still today, individuals are afraid of domestic violence, of getting hit, of getting harassed, of all of these things. We didn't have a phrase normed, which happens through social cultural influence, right, about what individuals are experiencing and what toxic what masculinity and the toxic aspects of things portrayed themselves.
It's only really in the last
Luigi.
10 years it's suddenly been amplified and used for absolutely everything. So I thought it might be useful.
Look at that. Misogyny, homophobia, violent domination. Yep.
To just start with something that Chris Williamson, you may know him, great guy, and he came on my show recently, and he said that all the following things have been blamed on toxic masculinity in the media in the last year and a half.
No.
Gang violence, climate change, the financial crisis, Brexit, the election of Donald Trump, not wearing a face mask, eating meat, physical fitness, fast food, capitalism, communism, hip hop, smelling of Axe body spray, being stoic, risk-taking, religion, but also secularism and atheism, playing board games, being interested in cars, and saying hello or have a nice day.
If you're basing your whole argument out of a generalization and overgeneralization, you're basing it off of a cognitive distortion. Now that you've based it off of cognitive distortion, anything that anybody tries to say to you, and this would have been my approach to him immediately, which was, okay, I hear the way that this is phrased is you're coming at as an overgeneralization. Is it to try and go ahead and frame yourself as though any, actual conversation topic about this is wrong immediately because it's this overgeneralization of topics that you have breached as though toxic masculinity has not touched this, right? Again, a common manipulation tactic and also a common debate tactic is to go ahead and bring up a random quote from someone that isn't even pertaining to the current debate that we're having. Okay, there's someone in the field, there's someone of reference, right? But are they of reference, of actual peer-reviewed reference that we can go ahead and cite due to peer-reviewed nature? Or is this just some podcaster or a random, individual out there, right? Have a risk.
So I have already committed at least one crime because I've already said hello to you.
That's
so
true.
my point being,
That's true.
I'm actually really offended by that too.
Sorry?
No! Hold
I've
on.
already said hello to you.
That's
So
true.
my point
The
being,
I'm
sarcasm.
actually really offended by that too.
sorry?
I said I'm actually...
He's like, what?
He said hello to you.
That's
so
true.
my point being,
I'm actually really offended by that too.
Sorry?
I said I'm actually very offended by that too.
No, the
glad.
thing is, I think the point I would make is, I think in a time when young men in particular, I've got 3 sons,
Okay.
32 to 24. I think we've got to a weird place where they feel like they are the most downtrodden, picked upon people in society. With good reason in many cases. And a lot of it is down to this. Where
A lot of that, if they're feeling picked on, is probably because you've put them, unfortunately, in this woe is me mentality as a parent instead of empowering them to go ahead and show them what a true gentleman should be like. As a parent, it is up to you to go ahead and bring up your kids in a matter of fact where you teach them, for example, what boundaries are, right? What it means to be a proper gentleman. When individuals are talking about toxic masculinity, it is not talking about them specifically if it does not apply. I have this big philosophy in life, right? I know. I have this big philosophy in life where if the shoe fits, then wear it. If you feel like they're threatened, if the shoe because of toxic masculinity, then they're clearly, if the shoe fits, because my dad doesn't have any issues or concerns with that. I don't have any issues or concerns with that, right? And that's the main regard with that, right? It's ultimately how you're bringing up your kids, right? Or other friends or males that you're hanging around that would give you that conscious aspect of we're being targeted by this toxic masculinity word. But again, that's not addressing the main concern that Erudite, right, that Kylo was bringing up. Because they were bringing up, like, does this come from social emergence, right? The aspect of toxic masculinity. You've done a quote of someone. I'm not going to say who they are. I don't even know who they are. But you brought in a quote, and then you've gone into personal reasons. You have not addressed what she has asked. Sorry, chat. I'm looking at this, and this is someone that is trying to find a way. And again, I often see this in therapy. When someone is trying to find a way to answer a tough question, and they go into like various side stories, side gaps, until eventually they briefly touch on it because you know that they don't have a right answer for it. Yeah, for those of you guys that aren't aware, Piers Morgan is someone who has his own show on TV. Yeah, exactly. She didn't even say talk. Exactly.
They don't know what masculinity is. My argument is, I don't think it's ever been toxic. What's happened is you have men behaving badly, but you also have women behaving badly, and no one calls that toxic femininity.
Kyla, your face! Oh, just oh no! But also, toxic femininity, toxic non-binaryism. What can we say at this point in time? That face is so good. Yeah, exactly. That he does not understand what the fuck they're talking about. But overall, again, this is what we're getting into, right? And I'm kind of curious because she's such a smart girl, and I know that she's going to be able to go ahead and redirect this conversation. Watch how she works. She's incredibly talented. I know that she's had a lot of behavioral health background as well. So we've connected on that. She's an incredibly smart individual, and watch, she'll probably find a way to redirect this and probably lead it back into a social psychology aspect of talking about maybe how masculinity might have been formed in different ways, or lead the debate down into more of like, let's define it clearer. What do you mean by masculinity, right? Super smart.
Well, I actually do call it toxic femininity. I think when you look at, I do. When you look at like gender studies and philosophy on this, right? We use this term called masculinities and femininities because we understand that like the samurai era of masculinity looks very different than maybe the knights of the round table and whatnot. So we understand that masculinity has somewhat morphed and shifted. And in every form of these masculinities or femininities, there are unhealthy elements to each of them. Could you grant me that?
Well, it depends.
That was such an easy yes. That is such an easy yeah. It depends. She just rephrased what he said. She literally just rephrased what he said. And he's like, well, it depends. She literally just rephrased because you were saying, oh, not all guys are toxic. And there's also toxic femininity. She just rephrased what you said, Piers. Common psychology tactic here, right? Yes, end of story. Did he just disagree with it? He just disagreed with himself. He legitimately just disagreed. Look, okay, back it up just so you guys can see what I'm talking about here.
Society, with good reason in many cases. And a lot of it is down to this, where they don't know what masculinity is. My argument is, I don't think it's ever been toxic. What's happened is you have men behaving badly.
Men behaving
but you
bad.
also have women behaving badly.
Women
Nobody
behaving
calls
bad.
that toxic femininity.
According to Beers.
I actually do call it toxic femininity. I think when you
You do?
look at, I do. When you look at like gender studies and philosophy on this, right? We use this term called masculinities and femininities because
Right.
we understand that like the like samurai era of masculinity looks very different than maybe the knights of the round table and whatnot. So we understand that masculinity has somewhat morphed and shifted. And in every form of these masculinities or femininities, there are unhealthy elements to each of them. Could you grant me that?
Well, it depends what you mean. I mean,
Or femininities, there are unhealthy elements to each of them. Could you grant me that?
I love the way that you rephrase this. I love the way that you rephrase this. This is good. This was amazing. I would instantly bring you on, like, because of the way that like you just rephrased this and you like that was awesome.
well, it depends what you.
It's what you just said earlier. She just rephrased it back to you. Ah!
I mean, what do you think masculinity is?
In our society, I think masculinity.
No, not in your society. Just generally, what is it?
Yeah, in North America, we would broadly view it as like.
Well, hang on, you can't just say North America. Masculinity is a thing. It's not.
Yes, it's a thing, but it's a thing that means differently in different countries. Masculinity in Mexico is different than masculinity in the United States. Masculinity in the United States is different than masculinity in Japan. The different levels of toxicity in masculinity is also different based on the social cultural region that you're a part of. This is like those kids. This is like those kids in high school, right? That thought that they're just contrarians, but they don't know or understand social cultural influences and how it affects others, right? You're aware that different cultures have different ideals, dude. Yes, it doesn't take a psychologist to like legitimately just look at this. Oh wait, hold on. To take a look at this. And be like, it looks like, I don't know, maybe outside factors influence our words and our meanings and us, you know? Jesus. And this guy has a TV show? And this guy has a TV show. All right, y'all ready? Sorry, I don't know if ads are still going on. I'm just going hard here. I didn't think I'd get pulled into one of this. Oh my goodness. I didn't think I'd get pulled into this. Oh, chat. I hope you're okay with this. I hope you don't mind. I hope you don't mind. Piers Morgan should be. Thank you so much for the follow, Blue. He got owned by Zach. Oh, God. Okay, hold on. Give me 1 second. All right, let's keep going.
It's not like territory specific. It has become that way with the toxic element.
Well,
but actual masculinity, when it was first devised as a word, it's not an American thing, it's a global thing.
Do you think that Athenian masculinity and Spartan masculinity were the same in the Greeks?
Holy fucking mic drop. Holy fucking mic drop. Holy shit. Oh, It's simple. That is such a really good way of coming through and just dropping that bomb and just being like, oh, I know, queen, absolute queen.
I think masculinity has never changed.
Well, guys, my partner didn't have dinner ready. It's time for her to go meet gender equality. No, of course masculinity has changed. That aspect, masculinity has been changing, right? Toxic masculinity like that often led to a lot of DV situations. Guess what? That's changed along the ways too. And in fact, how men treat their partners and or masculinity in general, how it promotes the treatment of partners, has changed significantly. Jeez.
All that's changed is the interpretation of it. And what I can't abide is this modern phenomenon that everything about masculinity, everything about being a man, which I am currently identifying as, everything about me is supposedly toxic.
So I would reject the idea that everything that masculinity is toxic. I think that there can be bad elements of anything.
What do you like about men?
What do I like about men? Lots of things. I think that like the idea of protectionism is good. I think the willingness to kind of like self-sacrifice is very tied to the version of masculinity we have. I think that that's a very good thing. I think the like desire to provide is also a really good thing, and stand up for like principles and strength. I think all of these things are wonderful things. Well, the issue.
You like men to be hunters, providers, protectors.
I don't really care about them being hunters.
Really? How are they going to get all these things to help you and protect you?
In this.
Piers, you realize that we don't have to go hunt for food, right? Are you talking about being a go-getter or being ambitious? In which case, I'm pretty sure that anybody being ambitious nowadays, we've moved from a hunter-gatherer society into individuals that have the ability and the free will to go ahead and be motivated by different factors rather than try. Okay, I'm about to show you guys how stupid of an argument that is. Sorry, I hate when people try and go ahead and be like, she's such a queen. No, this is what I'm telling you. I love Kyla. She's incredible. I absolutely love Kyla. Here you go. He's saying this. Are you guys ready? I'm about to be Piers Morgan for a second. Sorry, guys. Oi! I don't know why I'm turning in. Okay, whatever. If we're not at the bottom of the triangle, what are we doing? We're stemming away from masculinity is. If we're not at the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we have stemmed away from what masculinity and true femininity is. Because we have to be hunter-gatherers. What the fuck? Bro, basic psychology classes will tell you, hey, there's a lot more to it than just me hunter. Much more than that. It's like, hey, you know what? Okay, now that I'm here, now that we're able to go out and sustain food, okay, how can I go ahead and maintain circles of friendships, right? How can I go ahead and keep elevating myself into an area where I feel confident in myself and be creative and have ideas and all? Yeah, it is. If you're talking about ambition, like individuals having ambition and going to go get that bag, as the kiddos say it, then you're talking about the higher areas. Yeah, higher areas of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The way that you're framing it is as though, then everyone, like, masculinity should be in the lower areas. That is just not psychologically stable in any capacity. Jeez.
Economy, I'd prefer them just to be like fiscally capable. Let's go back to the Athenians. Let's go back to Athenians and Spartans, though. Right?
The redirect.
Well, the issue is history would disagree with you, right? In Athens, for example, it was completely normal for you to participate in civility and talk and do philosophy. But Spartan men, for example, wouldn't even touch coins, right? They viewed it as a very different thing.
Whereas what's that got to do with them being masculine?
Well, because
masculinity is viewed differently. And again, if you're saying that masculinity is just a coined term that has stayed the same until quite recently, then simply by looking at the social cultural elements of cultures from the past or societies from the past, even within one country, you can view that masculinity was viewed differently according to the men that were there, and such were what was considered normal or norming of what is toxic and non-toxic in between this. I love her.
coins, right? They viewed it as a very different thing. Whereas
What's that got to do with them being masculine?
Well, because the version of masculinity that they had viewed certain things like commerce as feminine. If you go to samurais, they viewed poetry as masculine, whereas if you go to like Victorian era, poetry is often associated with femininity.
But what does any...
You literally just fucking owned him? Holy shit. You literally... I love this is why we're friends. This is why we're fucking friends. You literally just owned them in like the classiest way ever. And you stayed calm and cool and collected. I adore that.
What's that got to do with toxic masculinity?
Because if we look at masculinity, we have to acknowledge that it is emergent out of a society that we are participating in. When I say
I'm just God damn, that's a fucking Piers Morgan doesn't even seem like a bad man. He just seems like a dumbass. Yeah, she's so cool, dude. This
well, in North America, you rejected that and I go, well, that's the foundational piece of this. What we're talking about, toxic masculinity, is essentially a North American version of masculinity that we seem to not like.
Well, no, it's not. It's a symptom of, and forgive my phraseology here, but it's a symptom of weak, whiny, woke wastrels who've decided they're going to revise what masculinity is.
So notice the attack pattern immediately, right? Instead of saying, okay, you know what, let's take that into consideration, let's break that down, it immediately goes into an attack pattern here because he knows he's looking bad, right? Internally, we all know when we're messing up. And we might see this more and more and more as this goes on, where if an individual pushes him up against the ropes, and so whatever capacity or whatever imaginary ropes he might feel, he might go into this immediate attack pattern trying to get a reaction, right? Because once you feed into a troll's reaction, what happens, right? Yeah. Or if he understands and is not pretending to...
I think it's intergenerational trauma.
Hang on. I'll give you a chance to respond. And they're going to make all men feel terrible. They're going to make men hate themselves. They're going to make everybody else hate men. And at that point, I'm like, what are you doing here? Why would women, for example...
I don't understand why they're raising their flags if she's actually making phenomenal points. Like, I'm about to start crashing out on the people in the background if they come into this debate and they're like, and provide no actual substance the way that she's providing substance at this moment. I'm about to fucking crash out hard if they're raising their flags and they cannot even come through with a competent argument as to why toxic masculinity is what it is, right? And how it has social culturally evolved without going into a into a shouting match altogether. They're raising their flags because they want to get her out because they think that they might have a better approach at things, right? No. The red flags are because you want the person speaking against Piers Morgan to get out because you think that you might be able to go in there. Or I know. She's killing it.
Example, want their men to be weak, whiny, woke wastrels.
Well, I think the issue that you're neglecting here is the high levels of intergenerational trauma amongst men. I mean,
we just have to look at the wars. Exactly the point, right? Whenever you're pointing something like this out, intergenerational trauma, and I'll back it up and I'll hear her full thoughts, is such a big impact. Look at the difference between World War I, World War II, and the Vietnam War, and how it has affected every generation after. Guess what? We still feel the ramifications of war and trauma to this day. Trauma can even be linked down to genetical factors that you don't even know why you react a certain way, but yet you still do, right? Hence why you might have a whole thing where before you go to bed, all lights must be turned off. You don't know why, but if all lights aren't turned off, right, you get anxious. There have been studies after studies after studies after studies done into intergenerational trauma, especially after war-torn epics, right? Or war-torn elements, but also from just classic generational trauma from social cultural elements that showcase it does pass on, right, generationally, and at times it can get worse without the person knowing why they react a certain way.
Go back to World War II. It's followed by the Vietnam War, right? We see men dying by the thousands.
Yeah.
And then they come back and they have PTSD, and then they go off again and die by the thousands. And so when we look at like the lack of masculinity and masculine role models, we have to understand this through a lens of understanding that like men have been like scooped out and killed over and over, and then when they come back, they're destroyed. And there isn't really an answer for men. I agree that there's this systemic lacking of answer on the left for men in a lot of ways.
Right.
The issue is that we can't address
I think the left hate men. I mean,
Just to pause you.
They do. Even movies like Barbie.
I'm left.
Okay, here's a little secret for you. I'm slightly left. I'm a
Now let's try and build rapport, right? Now that you've made these statements, right? You could, yeah, exactly. See, appealing to the median voter. Let me speak. It's my turn. I know it keeps interrupting.
an old-fashioned liberal.
Do you hate men?
I'm not a. You see, they all think probably I'm a right-wing headbanger. I'm not. I'm an old-fashioned liberal. I believe in liberalism, and I believe there's nothing wrong with being feminine or masculine. I hate the way that masculinity has been tarred with this brush of everything about it is toxic.
I agree. But the issue is that you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You have
True.
to look at things like Victorian Stoicism and recognize how that has harmed young men because
Stoicism? Don't be ridiculous.
Hold on.
Absolutely. The aspect of like, what is it? You're to be seen, not heard, right? The aspects of like, hey, you know what? Men don't cry. All of these social cultural norms, right? And norms is quite literally like normalizing aspects. I know, stop interrupting her. Of like culture and sayings and elements that we had deemed to be normal or what we expect out of males, out of men, right? Altogether, and females, because guess what? Females also got normed as well, right? And a lot of my non-binary friends out there, guess what? Unfortunately, they were, oof, look at the way that they've treated a lot of individuals in the LGBTQ spectrum altogether. And you'll see that society has been extremely toxic. Classically, it's just the bottling things up until they pop. Exactly.
And recognize how that has harmed young men because
Stoicism? Don't be ridiculous.
Hold on, Victorian Stoicism, not Greek, not Greco-Stoicism.
Stoicism generally is a good trait.
I love Stoicism, Hellenistic Stoicism, not Greek.
Well, let me read you something. You've raised Stoicism.
She's great.
The American Psychological Association released a set of guidelines to help psychologists work with men and boys, in which it stated that male masculine traits like stoicism, competitiveness, achievement, eschewal of the appearance of weakness, adventure, and risk should all be discarded.
Yes. You know why? Do you know why, Pierce? Do you know why that was highlighted like that? Let's talk about it, right? Do you want to know why, Piers? It doesn't take a fucking rocket scientist to find out why. I wonder if it could probably be perhaps because we're looking at what a secure attachment is, and we're trying to make sure that kids are able to speak if they're having issues, and that, like, we seek for individuals to gain empathy and be able to connect with their caregivers and not be afraid of their fathers, and be able to, I don't know, communicate if something upsets them, and even if they're feeling anxious, that their caregivers are there to show them that anxiety might be a part of life, but there are ways that we can, cooperate and lead toward flexible behavior. I wonder why we highlight that, and especially when it comes to different social cultural elements. I wonder, it just might be me, I'm nobody special, it might just be one of those elements where, exactly, components of traditional masculinity, such as emotional stoicism, homophobia, not showing vulnerability, self-reliance, and competitiveness might deter them from forming close relationships with male peers. I wonder why homophobia and emotional stoicism and not trying to connect with others might deter you from forming close relationships. I just wonder, right? Or stunt you emotionally. God.
Now, I would categorize all of those things as the very best of being a real man. Why would you want them discarded?
I don't want most of those things. Let's talk about Stoicism.
And I think we agree.
Stop. She is doing phenomenal. Like, I literally have no notes on Kyla. I think she did absolutely great. Y'all drop some Doritos on her. I'm going to see if she comes up later or at some point in this video. I thought she did absolutely wonderful. She absolutely killed it. But I swear to fucking God, if someone comes in here, it doesn't have the same level of like debate that we have seen here and just goes into immediate like you know, like trying to hold on. My brother. It does nothing but like argue, right? Like not even for like with okay, let's see. I gotta
agree with each other. I think you agree with me too much. Anyway, it's lovely to meet you. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, she did great. All right, I just want to see.
Hello.
Hi, Pierce.
How are you?
Ceci.
Ceci, nice to meet you.
Okay.
Okay. First, I want to say that I don't think that masculinity is toxic.
Great.
I just think
Debate
that
over.
some men
Hang on,
use their.
hang on.
I'm wait.
Ceci, debate over.
No, it's not.
That's the whole point
The
of my
problem-
argument.
And now you've fallen for the trap. So, he's an actual idiot. Hold on. Hold on, I gotta send my brother a little something. It's not because it's highly lucrative. The point is, hear her out. Let's get her to the point. Yeah, let's get her to the point. But main element that I was highlighting through this was, well, okay, hold on. The way that, like, we're seeing his tactics, and his first tactic is to try and get you to legitimately fall into any one of his like rhetoric traps, right? This overgeneralization. If you agree and or disagree, you automatically, yeah, exactly.
I agree with you.
No. Because you're talking about a trait, right? So I don't think masculinity is toxic. I think men use their masculinity in toxic ways.
Yeah,
or hide
fully
other
agreed.
traits that are toxic behind their masculinity.
Okay, I don't agree with that. Here's why.
What?
They're not using their masculinity. They're just being bad people.
Okay.
So
but
I think there's a clear difference.
So then men like Andrew Tate, when they are bad people, but then stand like, I'm a protector, I'm a provider. They're using their masculinity as
I've interviewed
Andrew
Tate a number of times. Here's what I think about him. I think he says a lot of things which young men gravitate to because very few other people are trying to empower them about the way they look.
There are therapists out there that can empower men to be confident and build their own self-esteem about the way they look, about the way they feel. Unfortunately, you have a lot of these influencers who use dark psychology or manipulation tactics to be like, fuck women, you know, this is how you pick up women in the street. Yeah, we're about to use the #1 secret, rapport. This is how you build rapport. This is the open cold game. Yeah, this is how you do stuff, right? You see that, and it's like nothing but this toxic element that's being thrown out there. That's like, you're the GOAT. Nothing's wrong with you. Everything's wrong with them. Because unfortunately, what these influencers or individuals are doing is not allowing individuals to take accountability for their own action and instead blaming everything outwardly, because in order to build up the self-illusion of self-esteem, right, they do so in an extremely toxic way, right, by building an aspect of narcissism and grandiosity that they are the shit, when in fact, they're not. They're not even 25 cents, if we're going to be matter of fact about it. Oof. Sorry, chat. Sorry. I get very into little things like this, and unfortunately, whenever I see stuff like
Hang on.
No, I'm not.
Let me finish my sentence.
I can have a facial reaction to you if I want to, right?
Actually, that's fair enough. You
Right.
can. He can look horrified. But here's the point about Andrew Tate, is a lot of the things he says, I know why they resonate with young men.
Okay.
Because young men feel sort of worthless, they feel disenfranchised by society, they're not sure where to go. Many of them lack father figures. There's chest-beating Andrew Tate saying, keep fit, you know, don't abuse yourself too much.
Just women.
Well, I'm going to come to
Oh, 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 oh.
That. And so he says all these things, which men go, yeah, that's good. And aspire to be great, aspire to be successful, do this, work hard, and all this. And then you get to his blatant misogyny, right? He is a terrible misogynist. He thinks that women should be left at home, never allowed to vote,
I know who he is,
never
yeah.
allowed to work. I know, but my point is, I agree with you about that trait of his, right? I think it's horrible, but that's not toxic masculinity.
It's toxic masculinity when he's norming it, right? Where all of a sudden he's norming the way that he views masculine traits to be onto others, which is enforcing this misogyny, homophobia, all these other aspects that we can go into. That's the toxic masculinity that we're talking about. Specifically, toxic masculinity traits, right? Because ultimately there are traits that build up to be toxic depending on the culture that you're in.
That is actually misogyny. There's a word for it.
I guess the reason, but I think that all of this was
Can they
fueled
check
by
by?
people like Andrew Tate. Because like you said, toxic masculinity, we've never spoke about this before. But I think the reason it's on the table now is because of men like Andrew Tate. It's not because of women
Right.
calling men
So call
toxic.
it what it is. Call him
it's
a
literally
misogynist.
because red pill podcasters, especially during the pandemic, if you were already a loner.
All right, hold on. I'm going to zoom through this a little bit. I hope y'all don't mind. I just want to see if she comes through. Oh, God. That face. Oh, God. What a camera. Kyla, that camera doesn't do justice.
Like,
Or other women.
Or other women, sure, yeah, other people. But that's the thing.
Oh,
I'm saying
okay.
is that
It
men
was just it was just a bad screen cap. Okay, good.
have done it to each other.
I don't blame women.
They've done it to
I don't
each
blame women
other.
for any of this. I think that
All right, hold on. I need her to come back. Yeah, that's sort of what I'm looking at.
In
I
general,
won't find that annoying.
I think it was theist.
The other girl was doing pretty
Through
good
the
though.
Jordan
Sorry.
Peterson Jubilee debate.
I'll listen
Yes,
to the
that's
full
right,
argument.
you
Yeah,
did.
he has quoted us as gay theists on Twitter.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. How'd you feel about that?
Well, I mean, I think it was ridiculous. I'm
Yeah, I like the
like
pink-haired
straight,
girl too. I
but-
think she
Oh,
did.
you're
She's doing
straight.
great.
Okay, well, then
I was
I
just
can
trying.
understand why you'd
I was
find
just.
that
I was just trying to see if Kyla would come
I
back.
don't find it annoying. I'm just saying it doesn't make sense to use that as an argument. But in
I
general,
will not call you a gay theist.
okay. In general, the point that I would make here is that toxic masculinity is kind of an overexpression of certain masculine traits that we see in this certain context to be harmful. We're not saying all masculine traits are harmful or it's harmful to be a masculine man. It's certain characteristics that we would
Which
associate with
masculine trait
masculinity.
do you think is harmful?
Yeah, like for example, an overexpression of stoicism, and I think that a lot of red pill people.
What?
Wait,
Yeah.
let me explain. And I said an overexpression
How
of
can
stoicism.
stoicism ever
Be
ever,
overexpressed?
Ever be a
What? What? Let me take up your time and get you to react. What? Dude. Ah.
bad thing? Explain to me.
Yeah, so again, if you were to specifically hide your feelings and put them underneath, specifically for, like, say, the death of a loved one, I don't think that would be harmful, I mean, positive specifically for you addressing your feelings in that circumstance. I think you should address those feelings, talk about them, express them to loved ones and people that are comfortable.
Sure, yeah,
comfortable
100%.
around.
That doesn't
Or a
mean you can't
therapist.
still be stoic.
Well, then what do you mean by stoicism? Because I'm talking about an
Stoicism-
overexpression of keeping down your emotions and not expressing
No,
them.
Yeah.
that's not
Like
what stoicism.
actively, positively addressing them.
Yeah.
Stoicism doesn't mean you have to be a sort of unemotional, Spock from Star Trek. That's not what it means at all. Stoicism means that when you're dealt a tough blow in life, you're able to reach inside yourself and deal with it in a strong manner, right? Which is a good thing. I always quote to my kids, they can all
But that's the thing is here's the thing. People hear through talk, right? This is why we have talk therapy. Because ultimately we talk and we heal ourselves, right? The quality of if we can't express our pains, we harbor that emotions. Now, can that be healing for some individuals? Sure, right? But for a lot of individuals, you need to talk your emotions out. When you get broken up, right? Or whenever you go through a breakup, right? The worst thing you can possibly do is stay quiet. I don't care if you got to paint the other person as a villain for a bit. If that's what allows you the process to start healing, that's what allows you the process to start healing, right? But if you're absolutely destroyed and you're keeping that internally, guess what? That affects your mental health. That affects your emotional state. That affects you physically. That affects you as you go to your job. And every single day it gets heavier.
I'll tell you the speech off by heart. There's a scene in my favorite films were the Rocky movies. The first four were great. The
What
fifth one was
the
a turkey.
fuck are
The
we
sixth
going
one
into?
came back called Rocky Balboa. And in it, Rocky's son's in his 20s. He's a spoilt brat. He hates being Rocky's son. He's whining about everything. He's kind of pretty woke, weak, whiny, moaning
you're
about his lot in
associating those to be
life.
the same.
Telling woe is me all the time. So Rocky eventually has it out with his son in the street. And he says, look, He says life is tough. It will beat you down and it will keep you down if you let it. If you want to win at life, you've got to learn it's not about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit, get back up, and keep moving forward. No, that's how winning is done.
No one's arguing against that in
right,
general.
So that's
right?
Stoic,
like,
but that is Stoic. That is Stoicism.
So, but
he's a fucking idiot. That's resiliency. That's resiliency. That's being resilient. That is not Stoicism. What the fuck? You're talking about being able to get back up. You're talking about being resilient. Hold on. Let's look up the Oxford Language definition of resilient. Able to withstand or recover quickly from difficult conditions. Or able to recoil or spring back into shape after bending, stretching, or being compressed. You're talking about being resilient. You're not talking about Stoicism. What? He's talking about determination here. Oh no.
But you're misunderstanding my argument. I'm saying an overexpression of watering down and not addressing your emotions. I think we both agree that would be a bad expression of your emotions. And oftentimes men view it that way because they say if you address your emotions to any degree, there's going to be, don't be a man, don't cry, be a man. So that's an idea of an overexpression of masculinity in that sense that becomes toxic.
So you say
does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And so you say
so then you agree toxic masculinity makes sense.
No. That's not what I'm saying. So you would find it objectionable to use the phrase "man up," for example.
In the context in which like someone is having a positive address of their like particular emotions, and in typical I wouldn't use into like that type of phrase. You'd say maybe you should address your emotions in a more positive way. Maybe you should go to therapy. A lot of
exactly. Maybe you should go to therapy at that point in time.
People should
He's
do
talking
that.
about
like, men should go to therapy. It's an important thing that they should do.
Maybe,
and that would be positive for their life.
I've never been to therapy in my life.
You should.
I'm not surprised. I mean, you can afford it, but I'm not surprised. You look like the type of individual that's like, therapy is a sham. Don't you know they're trying to infect your woke brains with more wokeness? They're trying to teach you about empathy and connecting with others. If you go to a therapist or a psychologist, they're going to talk to you about your feelings. I can totally just imagine this guy
And I don't cry all the time. I think the last time I cried was about 12 years ago when my grandmother died.
That's concerning if you're not getting emotional or sad, right? Or you haven't cried in a while. Remember, crying is a perfect natural response, even if you stub your toe, even if you have a bad day.
I just think this is overdone. We just moved from an incredibly stoic generation, say the World War II generation.
You mean the silent generation that were so fucking traumatized? Are you really trying to compare what some of the most traumatized generations with that went through wars and went through aspects of that we can't even possibly imagine, and the relationships weren't the healthiest, to now a current generation where they've been led to go and speak up for themselves and talk about their emotions?
Who were literally sacrificing their lives for their country, but weren't crying all the time, to an era now.
No, wait, why are you associating what I'm saying with crying all the time or being weak?
You're the one who mentioned crying, so let me just explain what I'm talking about. I don't think it's...
What the freak? What do you mean policy violations? The stream's down for policy violations? Huh. YouTube doesn't like me watching this. They're probably saying that it's like copyright struck or something. No worries. We'll just start it back up in a little bit. I'm still up on YouTube though. On Twitch, I mean. That's funny. That's crazy. Hold on, let me see. So stream suspended for policy violations. I don't know what that is, but sure. Let me see. I'm not seeing anything on my side. Andrew Tate got me. Whatever, right? Anyway, we're gonna finish this up and then we'll go ahead and open it back up, right? Hold on. Yeah, YouTube's because we're talking about politics, it's a policy violation.
Suits anybody to encourage a society to constantly be over emotional either.
I'm not saying that.
I'm not saying you should suppress emotions. And if you feel emotions about something, I'm all for it. I can get emotional with the best of them, normally about my football team. But I don't spend all my time blubbing like a baby. And my argument with
Who said that?
well, hang on, I'm going to finish my point. I think that if you look at the woke world generally, there seems to be a premium on over-emoting and not enough of a premium, in my view, of stiff upper lip, pull yourself together and crack on. Because let me tell you, there
Wow, stiff upper lip.
are two things you want to worry about in life, really worry about. I say this to my kids: dying and getting a terminal illness. Outside of those two things, everything is surmountable. You can overcome anything.
What about if your partner cheats on you?
But what you've got, yeah,
Like,
even
does it make
that.
sense? Okay, so there are plenty of examples we can give where people
Yes,
are going to have
but
like
my point is,
legitimate circumstances to cry or
I
be
don't-
Yeah,
sad.
100%.
So I'm asking you, like, in the circumstance, give us specific what you're referencing in terms of these woke liberals of how they're being too overly emotional.
Well, you're talking to me about why you want people to be more emotional. I'm telling you, I don't think that's
No, I
necessarily
want them to
a
express
good
it in
thing.
positive manners, like go to therapy, like how I told you.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was about to say that this whole time he's just been saying, like, you know what, therapy might be a good reasoning for individuals to go and seek help, right? The redirections, I wonder, is it sexism? I already know the answer.
but
Yeah.
I think we're over-therapied. Everyone I know.
No, no. There is not enough mental health help out there. There is not enough mental health help out there. Like, legitimately, in rural areas, there's little to no therapist or psychologist out there.
Over here goes to therapy.
You haven't gone to therapy at all. How are you over therapy?
Why don't you come and talk to me if you want to talk to somebody? I'll soon sort you out.
Wait, I can talk to my therapist and we can
I know,
actually engage
but is
in
it
positive
working?
reconstruction
Is it
of
working?
how I address things. Yes, actually, it's been very helpful for my mental health and my emotional health to
Okay.
be able to talk them through, to be able to like, what can I do to
Yeah,
like, make myself
100%.
feel better in these circumstances? Am I being genuinely like real here, like, or am I being a little bit too overly emotional in circumstances? It's totally a question.
Or are
I
you-
ask my
That's awesome. I love the way that they were framing that. That's pretty good. All right, hold on. I'm gonna try and just see if Kyla's still there. You know, I'm sure all of them have some like very interesting or amazing responses in some capacity. Oh, it looks like she was only at the beginning then. Yeah, it looks like she was only at the beginning. Nonetheless, I think she did an absolutely phenomenal job, everyone. Oh, hold on, chat. We got a community guidelines warning. Third-party content was detected on your stream. Are you talking about us actually commenting and whatnot? Hold on. Take a policy training. Ooh, it's a warning or appeal the decision. So someone reported it because we were doing it. Exactly. So someone tried reporting the video because we were commenting and talking about mental health. Yeah, exactly. It's fair use because we're breaking it apart. So we'll go ahead and appeal. Exactly. Dismiss. So some of the key elements through this is I know that we're breaking it down and we're talking about all exactly it's transformative content. We're talking about all these different elements with the main regard that like at the end of the day, this is sort of what Jubilee is like, right? And these are some of the contents or the layers that are out there. Typical, I know, typical copyright content. But I know YouTube bending over to the agenda that he's being resilient. Exactly. But resiliency comes in many different ways. And again, I think Kyla did a fantastic job. I think overall, some of these videos, of course, are made to rage bait you in some capacity. But overall, it was a very interesting discussion. And I think masculinity in general is a conversation topic that can go on endlessly, right? Is there toxic masculinity out there? I'm very curious. I do think so. And I think culturally, every culture has a different aspect as to what toxic masculinity could be. Leave your comments down in the chat below, in the comment below, if this goes up and YouTube doesn't decide to take it down. Even though every other streamer and YouTuber can bring up this video and have a conversation, have an actual analysis on it, right, without any issue. But the moment that we do, someone got hurt and they'll showcase it, right? But regardless, leave your comments down below. Let me know what you guys think. You know, and especially when it comes to the topics of, hey, you know what, looking at this through a psychological perspective, ultimately every culture views things a little differently. All right, with that being said, have a good day. Practice some self-care. And remember, hey, Be an advocate for yourself and be an advocate for others in your community and in your area, please.